Vetroo is slowly becoming a more and more popular brand here in America. Up until this year, I had never really heard of them. After doing some research, I found out they make or rebrand motherboards, power supplies, cases, CPU coolers, and fans, and they sell them all as wholesale. I'm not sure if they specifically build or they're just rebranding the parts that they sell with their name on it, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Today, I have this relatively interesting looking AIO here. I paid $50 for this 360mm AIO, and I don't know if you know this, but 360mm AIOs are usually well over $100. So to get something like this with RGB and also it's white, like white AIOs are kind of uncommon too, but I couldn't turn down the deal, and so here I am with a 360mm radiator that I don't specifically need. So today, let's take a quick look at the Vitru Lurker V360 all-in-one liquid cooler. So it is ARGB, so that is individually addressable fan colors, and it does show a 5-volt 3-pin sync interface, so hopefully that will hook up well with our motherboard here. And then it has a pulse width modulated fan control. So overall, it looks really good. Like, Corsair won't even sell you 3 fans for $100 with ARGB, much less the whole goddamn AIO. What else does this thing got? What are we showing here? It says water block with high texture and fashionable design makes your PC vogue. I always love the weird translated grammar that they put on these boxes, like double pipes design of the water block is adopted to achieve unblocked effect of the channel. Okay, not sure what that means, but okay. Spraying type copper bottom maximizes the contact area as well as speeding up the liquid circulation. Again, what are you talking about? E-shaped liquid channel design enlarges the cooling area, betters the heat exchange, and improves the circulation. Now, I think that is saying that it's got channels inside of the cold plate to better dissipate heat through water absorption. It's just more surface area, more heat dissipation. Like, that's pretty much what they're talking about there. The fan employs 9 blades and slim light frame design with anti-vibration pads, which can improve cooling efficiency as well as absorbing noise. It is so hard to read this grammar, but it's really funny. And finally, liquid cooling pipe with great tensile strength. Leak-proof feature and absolute sealing contributes to the satisfying quality of the cooler. So they're saying that they got some dank cooling stuff. PWM fans, PTFE materials pipe, so it looks like it's got some kind of braided stuff over the cooling tubes. And then pure copper bottom, so it'll just corrode inside of the system probably, because who knows what they made the radiator out of. I'd hope it's copper, because I mean it would just be completely insane to make it out of anything else. And then we got some specifications here. It's a model V360. Water block size 15.6 times 4.7 times 1.1 inch. I'm guessing that's the size of the actual water block is 15.6 inches. God, that's not right. Maybe the length of the radiator is 15.6 inches, but I don't think the water block is that size. And then we got the pump speed of 2800 RPM plus or minus 10%. Pump voltage 12 volts. Pipe size 14.9 inches, so that's some pretty good tube length if that's what that means. Fan size, obviously, they're 120mm fans. Fan speed 1800 RPM, plus or minus 10%. Airflow of 58.8 CFM, and then they're saying the noise level is of 27.2 decibels. So we'll make sure to verify their decibel number there, but go ahead and get this thing open. Looks like it supports Intel sockets LGA 1366, 1156, 1155, 1151, 1150, 1200, and 775, which is kind of weird, but okay. I think all of those relatively have the same kind of size socket anyway. And then AMD sockets, AM4, AM3 Plus, AM2 Plus, AM2, FM2 Plus, and FM2. So pretty much every AMD desktop socket from like the last 10 years it will work with. With the plastic off, the cardboard isn't too bad. Obviously they have the marketing stuff on the side, www.vetroo.com with all the, you know, follow us on Instagram. When you open this up, looks like we have a manual of some sort. Manual, it's obviously going to have some weird grammar because there's probably somebody randomly translating this. Like, Intel is spelled wrong on all of the steps. It is Innetel. So that's pretty funny, but obviously all the pictures are, they look fairly accurate as to how you would install this thing, so it's probably close to IKEA instructions here. We're gonna go ahead and ignore everything about those instructions. We got some packaging foam. Looks like it's packaged relatively similar to any Corsair AIO that you would get. Like, we got fans in here, fan over here, accessories, all the mounting bracketry, and hardware that you need for that. Looks like there's a controller in there for the RGB and pump stuff, so we'll have to take a look at that. Let's go ahead and get these fans out of here. Actually does have some decent weight to it. These tubes are actually pretty long. Obviously, everyone's going to be like, oh, how do you install it? You got to put it down here. You can actually hear the water in there. That's pretty funny. It is very white. Like, I'm not going to lie. It is pure white. Like, let's go ahead and close this up. All right, so with the box out of the way, it does have pretty good tube length. Let's go ahead and just measure it up here. Looks like we have tube length of about 15 inches, like they said on the box, so they're not lying to us on that front. It is painted pure white. It doesn't look like there's any kind of missed spots as far as like where they painted it. It is all white. The pump itself is very white. All of the wiring is also white, so you're not going to be mixing up any colors here anytime soon. All the wires for the fans are all white. Even the fan blades are a clear, transparent color. Now, onto some hardware. We're going to be using this with a older X370 motherboard, so hopefully it will be compatible. So in this little bag here we have an RGB controller. Yes, this is purely an RGB controller. And then you'll plug it into the motherboard on a 3-pin, and then there's like a mode button on it, and then a switch. I'm guessing this is a external switch connector if you want to route this out of your case. And then obviously a SATA power connector for it. So we got hardware with some springs on it over here, and then we got hardware with some springs on it over here. Now this has hooks on it, so it looks like this is going to be for an AM4 socket. And then we got thermal paste with a applicator and some more bracketry for probably a different socket size. Looks like, oh wow, they actually, okay, that's cool. So it actually comes with a back plate that has double-sided tape on it, so that if you're installing this when it's in the case, you just stick it on the back side of your motherboard and you don't have to worry about it falling off. Well, it looks like it'll work specifically with an Intel socket. So if you're putting this on an Intel socket and you want to mount it in your case first, this won't fall off while you're trying to install it. So that's pretty cool of them. Alright, so I have an Intel motherboard here just because I want to give you guys an idea of how to install this on both Intel and AMD. So what you would do, you take this piece of double-sided tape off, then go to install it on the back side of your motherboard where these 3 holes line up. And then the double-sided tape will stick this to the back side of your motherboard, so that if you go to install this in the case, you don't have to worry about it falling off. Obviously, remove your peel. And then for Intel, there'll be these 2 really long brackets just go ahead and install those. So you put it upright like this, and then take some screws, a little tiny screwdriver. Now I wouldn't get these screws too terribly tight because it looks like this is going through plastic, so if you go crazy with this, you might crack the plastic. So oil just strip them out, but you don't want to go too crazy with that. And obviously, because Intel sockets are perfectly square, you can install this any way that you really want. You could do upside down, you could do like that, you could do really anything. So we're just going to go ahead and install it with the Vitru logo straight up, just for visual purposes. Obviously, you want to install your thermal paste first, but we don't specifically need to for this because we're not going to be using this motherboard for testing. You start 2 screws with the springs on them. Obviously, start all the screws before you start tightening them down because once you start tightening stuff down, it doesn't want to line up in other places. It looks like the pump is a 3-pin header, so you can plug it into any fan header, but it's going to be running at full speed all the time, I believe. Obviously, you can pulse width modulate a 3-pin header a little bit, but there's only so much. And then if you were building this in a system, you would plug the 3-pin RGB header into the controller, along with all of the fans, and then you would plug the other end of this into your 3-pin on the motherboard, and then you would plug this into a SATA connector of some sort just to power all of that. Well, I guess you wouldn't really need to. I'm not 100% sure if you would need to plug this into a SATA power if you had a header on your motherboard. So we'll have to check that out when we get there. And then obviously this is magnetic, so if you have something that is magnetic, you can just attach that to the inside of your case anywhere you need to. So that's pretty cool. All right, we're just gonna take this off real quick and install this on the Ryzen 7 1700 I have here on Benchy. I literally just did a review on this processor, so I might as well use the processor that I already have on Benchy. Obviously, to remove it, just take out all these screws. All right, so for installing on AMD, there's a set of brackets here with some spring nuts, some hooks, and some adapter brackets for the actual pump assembly. So go ahead and put these in where the other brackets were. Again, don't tighten these too much. They don't need to be too tight. If you strip them out, things can get really ugly. Really, all they're here for is keeping these from going outward. That's all it's for. The pressure from this mounting onto the motherboard will be more than enough to keep them in place. So we just start these nuts with the hooks on the other side. Because I'm going to actually be using this on Benchy, I'm going to go ahead and mount up all these fans. The hardware is actually pretty nice, I'm not going to lie. These screws are really nice quality screws. Like, they look really good. They're very clean. I really like that the vibration damper pads are pre-installed. It's kind of annoying when you get fans and you have to install all of those from like double-sided tape on your own. It's very annoying. And obviously there's some hardware in here in case you want to mount this to a case after you have all the fans already in. You could put this inside of your case and then run screws in from the top so the fans are on the inside, or you could put the fans on the top side and mount it through the case like that. It's just kind of awkward sometimes to try to line up a fan with the radiator and then get it all lined up and then put in all the screws for the fans and then tighten them all down. So sometimes people like to just put the fans on the radiator and then put it in the case and then just start screws that way. So it's all a personal preference. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just plug everything into the controller here as far as RGB goes. Honestly, as far as quality is concerned, like, this feels just as good as coolers that I've seen that cost twice as much. And I'm talking that like twice as much as like what it normally costs. Like, I only paid $50 for this, but so far it looks really good. The controller here doesn't have a very good positive engagement when you plug these in. It doesn't feel like they're really plugged in there tightly, but RGB wires kind of never do, so it's a little hard to judge it on that. So it comes with a 3-way splitter for these. So we'll just go ahead and plug all these into the splitter. All right, so let's go ahead and mount it up to Benchy here. Now you will need the stock brackets that came with your motherboard to mount this cooler. So it does come with some Vetroo thermal interface material. 5 watts per meter Kelvin. Not the greatest stuff I've ever seen, but it should do okay. And it does come with a thermal paste spreading tool if you're one of those people who like to spread your thermal paste around. I just slap it on there and call it a day. So anyway, I get both the hooks on there and tighten them down. See, I did a stupid. I mounted the hooks on upside down. Just go ahead and flip these around. Again, another good reason not to mount those screws too tight. If you screw up and mount the hooks on upside down, and then they don't want to come out, you're in for a bad time. Oh man, I'm a little upset. My white balance is all messed up for this video because I changed the setting on my camera, so hopefully the video doesn't come out looking too washed out. Alright, so it looks like this is the correct way of mounting this to an AM4 bracket. Let's go ahead and try this again. So I like to pull away from it when I'm doing this, just to keep these hooks seated. If you're pulling on it, the hooks can't come undone. I mean, yeah, it looks like that's all there is to it, so let's go ahead and run it. Let's go ahead and plug in our pump. Let's go ahead and search through all of our cable nightmare to plug in our fans. Alright, so the motherboard that we're using doesn't actually have a 3-pin ARGB header on it, so we're going to go ahead and just see what the regular controller does, and then I'll go ahead and run this on a different motherboard just to see what kind of colors we can create with these fans. Right away, the fans really don't look too bad. You can definitely hear a lot of water noise. I'm sure if I turn it upside down, it will decrease the water noise. And I know people in the comments are going to yell at me for having it mounted like this, but for what I'm using it for today, it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to get an idea of what these colors look like. Honestly, the built-in ARGB does not look too bad. Obviously, there is a ton of different settings you can have this on. Yeah, you can definitely hear a little bit of water noise from the pump, but that will probably calm down as it sorts the bubbles out inside of the radiator. Honestly, not too bad. Like, I'd really expect a worse layout and assortment of parts for this kind of hardware. This looks really good. Like, I cannot explain how good this looks for $50. Like, I'm very impressed. Obviously, the colors could be a little bit stronger. Let's go ahead and turn the lights out completely in here. It's not quite as strong as the LEDs on, say, Corsair fans, but at the same time, you're getting a whole 360mm AIO with fans for less than the price of like 2 Corsair fans. So you really cannot complain about this kind of quality here. Obviously, this would normally cost like $80 to $100, so you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt because I got it so cheap. But honestly, it looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and mount it up to a motherboard with actual ARGB control because I kind of goofed up here. But obviously it works with a motherboard that doesn't have ARGB. It's got its individual controller, so that's really nice to have. Again, super cool that the backplate for Intel motherboards comes with like double-sided tape to hold it on there, because honestly, if you were mounting it in a case like this, how would you hold it on there by yourself? Like there's no access to the back side of the motherboard on that benchy here. So if I didn't have that double-sided tape on there, it would be like almost physically impossible to mount this cooler. So again, just little things that they think of and include that makes this so much easier. All right, so yeah, I'm not specifically a huge fan of Gigabyte's software for this. I much prefer ASUS stuff, but all of this can be set to your motherboard settings, regardless of which motherboard you so choose to have. So if we want it to be set at a static orange, we have a static orange. If we want to pulse the color, it can do that. If we want to flash the color, we can give ourselves seizures. And if we want the double flash, we can do it double fast. Then obviously a color cycle of sorts. You can change the speed of it. And then say a wave of colors. And we can change the speed of it to where it rainbows even faster. And obviously we can turn it off if we want to. I think a lot of this is just random settings that they have in here. Alright, and just as a quick formality, I'm just going to see what kind of decibels this thing gets up to in a Prime 95 run. So let's go ahead and open up Prime 95 and the hardware info. It does let it get up to 100 Celsius, so it's not too terribly loud. You can definitely feel the heat coming off of this thing. Yeah, it's definitely not running Prime 95 at maxed out speeds. Honestly, I don't know if this is something that is realistic. Yeah, I didn't think it would be able to survive on a Prime 95, but on Cinebench it's doing okay. We're seeing temperatures around 80 C, which for Intel is not too bad. It's not too terribly loud. I'm just gonna go grab a decibel meter just to scientific. On the decibel meter here, at about this length, it's sitting at about 50 decibels. It's not too terribly loud. As far as, you know, 3 fans going at probably max speed, it's really not too bad. You don't hear the pump at all over the fans, so I guess that's nice. So yeah, honestly, it's really not that bad. It's keeping this 10850K below 85C on a Cinebench run, so in gaming it's probably going to be even lighter than that. It's not too terribly loud. I mean, it's obviously 3 fans running at max speed, but they're not horrifyingly loud like one of our bigger tower coolers like the Assassin 3 will definitely make a good amount of fan noise like this. So honestly, I view this as totally acceptable. And for the $50 that I paid for it, honestly, you could not get a better deal for a CPU cooler. Like, obviously, a fully ARGB control like this requires a lot of extra wires inside of your PC, and moving your PC around with these ARGB wires connected to it will result in it probably loosening them up, and then you'll have to go back in there and tighten up those ARGB connections because they're just not that good. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, you think this is a pretty cool cooler, leave a comment down below, like this video, get subscribed for more random part reviews, and that has been the Vetroo Lurker 360. Have a great day, guys.